pulsed electromagnetic field therapy with special guest Dr. Kim Shunkwiler. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Gordon.
Welcome back, everybody. The date on the slide is June 5, but time flies and it's already July 5. So we want you to know that today you're going to have a chance to hear from a practicing clinician how all this dry research that Dr. Pollack reads 300 papers and he reviews it all and finds that there isn't anything you can name from edema to cancer that isn't been reported favorably in the published literature going back 30 years. But that's kind of dry, and you don't have $30 handy, and you'd have to call the PEMF.us website to get a copy, and Dr. Pollack's at Johns Hopkins, and it's not convenient for you to drive over to Johns Hopkins. So all this stuff, which this amazing compilation of papers is going to help you when you understand that what PEMF is doing today is actually replacing what the Earth's electromagnetic field took away. So we don't care what your condition is. If you can have the most serious infection, you can have liver that's dying, kidneys that are failing. Everybody can't believe it could help their condition, but this compilation, which you can buy for 30 bucks, or you can go on Google and put in PEMF and stem cells. Remember, stem cells are expensive therapy these days. People are spending $25,000 to get stem cells. But with PEMF, if you look at Google, it says you can make them yourself. So I am here to tell you that it's been an amazing week. And if I didn't have this unit, I wouldn't have a horse alive today, because 1 week ago, right after we did the webinar, my top warm blood Grand Prix show jumping horse had just been transported down from cool Colorado to hot Phoenix, and she went into complete serious shutdown, colic of the most advanced kind, whereby the night right after we'd finished the webinar, they had to cut her open, and she was in such an advanced state because she was not a fidgety mare. Nobody dreamed she was that advanced, that I have spent the rest of the time until this morning saving her life using PEMF and all the other things that those of you who are a member of my FACT group would understand: the high doses of vitamin C, the magnesium, the silver, the homeopathics, the neurotherapy, the far infrared. I mean, everything, including ozone. There's nothing I left out, but if I didn't have the ability to restore, the cells aren't going to utilize all that if you live on Mars, because once you lose the magnetic field, all the vitamin C will not get used by the cells. So it's pretty exciting to know that when we can look at published literature, and there's so much published, but it's important to know that you could actually regenerate a nerve. So that gives me hope that I don't have to go blind or lose my hearing, or I don't have to be routinely depressed, because we know that stem cells are increased on antidepressants, and they are also increased when you treat with PEMF. And I would rather use PEMF, which is getting at the cause, rather than having to live on a drug. But when you need a drug, you need a drug. But it's really important to know that all these benefits, range of motion, all these things, my horse was so close to death, they said Wednesday night for me to come urgent. They have going to have to put my horse down. And I got there as fast as I could, and we gave vitamin C in the vein, and my horse stopped being in pain. So vitamin C can't cure everything alone, But when you get adequate doses of vitamin C, and you won't know what an adequate dose is until you get a hold of a book, Curing the Incurable by Tom Levy, and you will become an expert at saving your life and the life of your loved ones, as I saved my beautiful horse's life. She is one of the most glamorous, incredible show-jumping Grand Prix horse that you could want. And she was going to be put down 1 week ago. But with these amazing powers that we have today, and how can we get this PEMF so that it's available on every street corner instead of just going in and having some suntan bed treatment? We're going to have to find this kind of treatment everywhere, because not every doctor has got the time. But we have a doctor joining us today who took the time, and you're going to be very glad that you've tuned in today, because Dr. Kim Shunkwiler is going to tell you when he took the time to check this out, why he took the time, and where it went. So we've got a doctor on the line who's been practicing chiropractic medicine in Michigan since '87. So we've got a few years of experience, to put it mildly. The decorated veteran of the Vietnam, 3-time past president of Rotary, chairman of the downtown. He's a dedicated physician. And this gentleman has been able to build himself a beautiful health center. But the key thing in that health center is we have a PEMF device. And this PEMF device only came into his office a few months ago. And when you hear this story of how he combines his knowledge of chiropractic and homeopathic, but he's had some amazing experience. He's got the 25 years in clinical nutrition. We all need the clinical nutrition as good as PEMF is. And it is amazing, because it'll push the toxins out and take the good stuff in. It'll do all these things. You can't get everything done by merely replacing the pulsed electromagnetic field that Earth has taken away. The Earth's field is now believed to be about 1% of what it was at its peak around the time of dinosaurs. So it's kind of exciting to know that we're going to have this opportunity. And Dr. Kim Shunkwiler has agreed to be on with us today, and these will be some of the agenda, and we're not going to be stuck with the agenda, but I wanted you all to know that we've got some data to back up these kind of cases, so that instead of giving you the dry slides that seem to not ever be relevant, because it's what doctor, who knows who did that research paper, and so you get tired of seeing all the slides and all the published stuff with 2,000 papers. Who can read it all? But now you've got a live doctor on the line, and so Dr. Shunkwiler, welcome to today's webinar. Tell us, how did you discover PEMF?
Well, hi, Dr. Gordon, and it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Let me tell you how I found out about PEMF. In a way, it's a sad story. My son last March called me up and said, "Dad, I'm not feeling too good. I'm having a tough time breathing." And anyways, he ended up at the hospital. He was diagnosed that evening with a 17-centimeter tumor in the center of his chest. He had 3 other tumors half that size below his diaphragm. He has stage 4 lymphoma with no other symptom other than the compression of the tumor and the fluid causing him some difficulty breathing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a shock.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't believe it. He was my best friend, my hunting buddy, my fishing buddy. It took us, of course, it shocked us all. They talked him in. You know, I got to write a book about how they talked him into doing chemotherapy someday. But
they're good at it. They're really good. They say.
Oh my.
You know, it's so sad. There's so much lying. I have a great video. There is a cure for cancer. You just remember those words and look at the video, and you'll have a documented, beautiful documentary DVD for about $28 that will save lives, because you'll know how much you're being lied to when they say there's nothing else out there. And that's what they tell all the cancer patients: radiation, chemo, and surgery. That's all. And they're not telling the truth.
They told him it would be. It was 94% successful, and it was almost like treating a common cold, they told him.
Wow.
He wanted to go home for 2 days. I said, I want to go home for 2 days and think about it, he said. And they came and did the ultimate sales job on him and, most importantly, his wife, and scared the dickens out of him and said he couldn't, he probably, if he left the hospital, he might not make it back, you know, all those things. So he agreed to it. And this is where I've got to share this with you because it sticks in my, I'll never forget it. My wife and I walked out of the room. The doctor, the department head at University of Michigan, walked out behind us. There was a doctor sitting across the hall, and I saw the department head give him the thumbs up. The other doctor walked out. They slapped high fives, just like two used car salesmen that sold that clunker in the corner, you know.
Exactly. They were so happy. They've convinced him to stay in the hospital, run up a $100,000 bill, and live 1 day extra, perhaps.
Yep, and I think what they did is they actually shortened his life. They gave him three treatments, and the doc called him up at home. He was home alone on a Saturday morning after 3 of their R-CHOP treatments, and the doc said, well, son, says, it didn't work. This is really unacceptable. There's really nothing else we can do. You know, basically, you know, sucks to be you. And that was it. They washed their hands of him.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty disgusting.
And that's going on every day in our country. We have we have a dominant theory of Western medicine, ignoring the fact that most of the history of mankind was based on things like herbs, and food was your best healer. And we have extensive experience with things like ozone and hyperthermia and acupuncture and homeopathy, but it doesn't fit the system because it's not reimbursed by insurance, so no one's going to bother to mention these other therapies to the patient.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I got on the internet, of course, from the time he got sick, and I started looking and searching, and I came across your website, and I was really impressed. I joined the Fact Forum and started getting daily emails, and I first, and that's where I heard about PEMF, but I was looking into the PEMF after I heard you raving about it, and now I got to backtrack just a little bit because after the medics gave up on Ben, he went to see a DO in Ann Arbor who does a lot of alternative stuff, and the first thing he did was to send him down to Toledo to Dr. Roberts down there, who I think you might know.
He's a good friend, you bet.
Yep, and he was supposed to spend 200 hours underneath that Bondley magnet.
Yes.
Well, with the tumor mass that he had in his chest and the fluid that would accumulate, he couldn't lay down.
Oh, of course. Of course, if you can't lay down, you can't get in the field.
That's right.
That device, Dr. Bondley doesn't do just the magnetical sleep pads that I tell everybody to buy and sleep on 10 or 20 gauss and spend anywhere from $1,000 to $3,600 depending on the size of the bed, but he also has these incredible $250,000 magnets that weigh about 10 tons. And so that was the 10-ton device you tried to get your son to be treated on, but they couldn't put it. It was too far advanced to get between the top and the bottom of the magnet.
Right, exactly. He couldn't lie reclined. Yeah. So anyways, I've got the computer screen in my office, and my son's best buddy, who's the one that took him to Toledo and to spend the night with him, he looked at the computer screen, and I had a picture of the PMT 100 on the screen. He goes, hey, that's what they used on Ben. And I said, I thought they used that big 10,000-pound magnet. He says, no. He says, they couldn't use that. And I said, now I remember. He says, they set him in a chair, they wheeled this thing in, and they wrapped a rope around his chest, and he went right to sleep. And he started breathing normally. He says, that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. He says, they came in after about an hour and a half, and they wanted to take it off him, and I wouldn't let him. So, and it was just a shame because he was so advanced, and he was advancing so fast because it just took over.
Sure.
He couldn't,
as powerful as PEMF is, there is a time when the condition has gone beyond, but it is a shame not to have it available, to know about it, and to try it, because look at, we have these autistic kids that you're going to tell us about with one treatment get eye contact or suddenly has changed their eating habits. Instead of eating esoteric nothing, become a normal person with one treatment. So it would be a shame for so many people to die in this world when there's something as simple as getting a 10-minute treatment costing somewhere between $25 and $50, and knowing in 10 minutes, as I saw with my first treatment, something real has happened to my body and I needed to know more.
Right. Which this is all coming together in my mind, and I've started learning about PEMF. And I remembered back many years ago, I took a seminar from a doctor, Dr. Carl Ferrari, and he said something at the beginning of the seminar that has stuck with me ever since, and that was 25 years ago or more. He said, you can't unknow what you know. He said, you learn things in your life that will help people. You're almost obligated to use it. It's just a law of nature, right?
Yes.
So when I started learning about PEMF and I saw it and I heard what it did for my son, and I had to explore it more. That's when I contacted Jim McBride. He sent the rep over to the office. He brought his machine. We treated a few people. One was a patient with tendonitis in her foot. She's a trainer for University of Michigan hockey team. We put it on her foot. She got up. She said it was at least 50% better. 2 days later, with only one treatment, it was gone. Never had another problem.
Isn't that this is a trainer, a professional person that couldn't get rid of it, and all they needed was one treatment in your office with this machine.
Yep, exactly. I had another patient with a groin pain. We'd been working on for a couple of weeks, and we get her a little bit better. You know, she had a typical sciatic pain with the end of the groin. We put it on her, and she got up, said it was gone, and it hasn't come back. That's been almost 4 months. So,
and that patient could go from doctor to doctor, and at least three of them would certainly recommend surgery after they did another $5,000 CAT scan and workup. It's amazing. I mean, every shoulder that we see seems to get well with one or two treatments, and all the knees that people have. I mean, it's unbelievable that this device is on our planet today, and people are still having knees operated on, shoulders operated on. And here we see these dramatic results, which, of course, I've tried to cover the science in previous webinars, because there's a lot of science here. But if you don't know the science, who cares? If your pain's gone and you can now play the game again, and you can see how many sport people have been returned to their sport only because of PEMF.
well, exactly. You know, as a chiropractor, we sometimes it's tough in practice. You know, we got to. I say we got to hit home runs. You know, we got to get the patient. Yeah, we got to get the patient well as quick as possible, and this does it. It's just been amazing. I ordered the machine, and got it. And the rep was down in my office that morning. I was supposed to get my machine on Monday. He was there on a Friday, and we treated some patients and saw some amazing things. And my machine came late that morning. So I hadn't even opened the machine. Joe and I finished up seeing patients. I don't see patients on Friday afternoon. We went over for lunch. We were sitting in the restaurant. Old friend of mine and his wife walked in. I hadn't seen for many years. They came over and offered condolences for my son. And I said to the wife, I said, how are you? Because she was hobbling quite a bit. And I said, how the heck are you, Gail? She said, well, I can't repeat the words she used. He says, I went to the chiropractor 3 times a week for 2 years. He says, I spent over $10,000 in supplements, and I didn't get a bit better. Her knees were both swollen. Her calves were swollen. She could hardly walk. Joe, the rep, looks up at her because they were standing by the table, and he says, Dr. Kim has something that will help you. And she goes, yeah, right. And anyway, they went back. They were eating their lunch. Joe and I finished, and we were walking out, and I stopped by the table, and I said, Gail, I said, I really do think this might help you. And she looked at me. She said, well, are you there this afternoon? And I was through for the day, but I know her husband owns the local shopping guide, and it goes to over 23,000 people.
Okay,
So,
good.
so I said, Gail, I'm going to go back to the office and drop them off. I'll go back. I'll wait for you. Finish your lunch and come on over. So she did that. I had to rush back, open the box that my unit was, the PEMF unit was in. I hooked it up, and sure enough, she comes over. She hobbles in. Takes her about 20 seconds to sit down in the chair. I treat both her knees, and I said, well, stand up and let's see how it feels. She stood right up without putting her hands on the arms of the chair. Her eyes got as big as silver dollars, and she goes, oh, my God. She goes, I can't believe this. So needless to say, and she has many times, she repeats that story. I went to the chiropractor 3 times a week for 2 years. I never missed an appointment and spent $10,000 on supplements, and I got more relief here in one treatment than I got in those 2 years.
Exactly. It's amazing. My professional photographer snapped a picture on a lady that walked by our booth, and she had a frozen shoulder for several months. Mm-hmm. And she saw us doing some mock treatments just to show how you would treat a shoulder. And she talked to them, and she said, well, it's late at night, she says, and my shoulder has been in pain for 3-4 months. So we went ahead and treated her for about 9, maybe 10 minutes. But my photographer friend, he kind of knew what might happen, and he had that camera fixed right on her face when we took the machine away, and she tested her shoulder, and it went all the way up her arm. And he cut, but he hasn't given me the picture yet.
I've had 2 instances exactly like that, where one guy had surgery on his shoulder, and he couldn't reach in his back pocket to get his wallet out. He had to carry it in the other pocket, and he couldn't go up more than he couldn't make 45 degrees up.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we have so many people with these complaints involving our neck and our back and our shoulders and our knees and our hands and our wrists. And here is a device that will change the cost of health care, because you won't need to go first and have a CAT scan and then have the orthopedic specialist and then do an arthroscopic and all this nonsense. Let's just get well and go about our life.
Exactly. Of course, that's my attitude. Let's just fix the darn thing. A friend of mine, a fellow chiropractor down the street from me, I've known for many, many years, and he herniated L4, L5, and he's as bad as any patient I've seen in 25 years. He was going everywhere for disc decompression and stim and you name it.
Yep.
And he couldn't work, and he couldn't afford not to work, but he was off work a week and a half when I got my machine. And he got into the office. I treated, after the 3rd treatment, he was back to work.
Isn't that after the 3rd treatment?
After the 3rd treatment, he's back to work.
And this is one of these so-called herniated lumbar discs that they love to operate.
Right. In fact, 2 doctors had told him he needed surgery. That was the only, because they tried everything else. Said, go get the surgery because nothing else will work.
And what I like to quote to everybody is when I listen to NYU Medical Center on Doctor Radio, Sirius Satellite 81, the head of orthopedics says, when somebody calls in and says, I've been operated and it didn't help at all, he says, lady, I have to tell you, I've never seen a back I couldn't make much worse by operating. So, in other words, here was an honest orthopod saying, I don't have the magic in my scalpel. Let's you and I go back to working here with the body.
No kidding. Well, this doc took me out to lunch last week, and he told me that he spent last Monday. He spent all day Sunday at his mother's house. His mother's elderly. He was over helping her out. He said, bending over, picking up twigs and things off the ground. He said 3 wheelbarrows full. And he says, I haven't been able to do that for 5 years. It's the first time I hurt my back. And he said,
it's so exciting. I mean, the same thing's happening to me. I can't. I mean, I actually jogged around the hotel. It's 76 years of age, jogging. I've always been so stiff and pain. I can't believe what's possible.
Right. Well, you know, those are just the coolest things. I mean, it makes, well, of course, it makes you feel wonderful that you've got that ability to change people's lives like that with such as this marvelous device. But I think we have a picture there of the patient that I had that had radiation damage on his face.
You bet. You bet.
Okay. Now I've been treating him for many years. About 4 years ago, if you look at that picture, the top right, he had parotid cancer, and they did surgery. Then they did radiation therapy. They actually ended up burning off the majority of his ear, and that spot that you're seeing there would never heal.
Of course.
That was done in '07, and
wow.
he would have to put gauze on it every day to work. I mean,
what a way
to
have to, can you imagine walking around with that all the time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Of course, he said he couldn't see it, so it didn't bother him too much. But
oh, wow.
But I got the machine, and I had it there, and they were asking me about it, and I got to thinking, well, this might help. So I said, let's try this to see what it does. And you can see the picture on the left there.
It's amazing. Look at that. You've got actual skin growing where 3.5 years, nothing. So if anybody doubts that this is turning on stem cells, this has got to make it clear. This is what is so exciting, because we're seeing the Alzheimer patients coming back. We're seeing the Parkinson patients stop shaking. We're seeing the autism kids getting a total change after they haven't spoken a word in 18 years. I mean, it's so amazing that you've got this beautiful picture. Thank heavens somebody remembers to use a camera, because this is really powerful. This is really
I couldn't believe it. I had to take a picture of it. But I will tell you that after I saw him on a Wednesday the first time, and I treated him, and that thing was angry, red. It was just always inflamed.
Yes.
I treated that for about 6 minutes. I used the butterfly loop and just had him hold it up there against it. And when he took it away, the inflammation was gone.
I mean, this is really interesting, because if you understand, everybody listening today, that we know, and that big book that I showed you with Dr. Pollack from Johns Hopkins, if you read it, you'd know that it's proven every way you can prove it, that it lowers inflammation, and inflammation is behind most of the degenerative diseases that we're fighting, whether you call it cancer or heart disease. But here is proof that you can take a simple coil with a machine that any doctor could lease today before the wreck our economy and interest rates are still affordable, for $488 a month. $488 a month, and you've got a $20,000 machine that can change the life. And how many minutes did you treat this face? 6 minutes?
I treated his face 6 minutes at a time. Now, the interesting thing is, I also treated his central nervous system. I just kind of got in the habit of doing that with most people. So I'd have
that's why I'm bringing it up, because I want people to understand that time is money, and we have to charge for treatments. And if I had to treat somebody for a half an hour, which should not happen very often, but with my horse, I've been through that, saving her life. I was treating her for a half an hour twice a day or longer. But the thing is, she's kind of big. She's 1,500 pounds. So this patient of yours doesn't even weigh 200 pounds. So I can see. But going back to your point, instead of just focusing on the obvious sick area, that's what I teach with my FIGHT program. The reason I have my food, infection, genetics, heavy metal, hormone, toxin, is that when you see a condition that won't heal, you think a little bit about, could they also be still eating wheat and they have a gluten sensitivity? Could they be sensitive to dairy? Do they have low levels of zinc? Do they have? So it's always good, but here you're proving that without doing a lot of that complex thinking, boom, you see a result now.
Well, exactly. And I'd have him sit on that big loop for 3 minutes, and then I'd put it around his neck, and I'd treat him for 3 minutes.
So I want to make that clear to everybody. You're treating the central nervous system, and all they're doing is sitting on the large loop. So to everybody understand what we're talking about, if you were to come to one of the conferences where Dr. Shunkwiler or I are present, and we were to do a demonstration to a doctor at a conference, we might treat for 3 minutes, sitting on a loop, 3 minutes leaning against it so that it's treating over the kidney area, and 3 minutes around your neck. So that's so we didn't want this to get too confusing. What he's saying is that even though we have different applicators to allow us to get the best magnetic field, if all I'm trying to treat is your nose or a toe, obviously I would treat that differently than if I'm trying to treat your entire liver, for example. So,
well, I want to elaborate on that a little bit, because he came in the office one day, and I started getting that butterfly that I would treat his face with ready, and he said, Doc, he says, can we treat down below first? And I kind of chuckled, and I said, sure. He says, you don't understand. He says, I went to 5 effing, he didn't say effing, but he said urologists, and they didn't do a thing for me. He says, I've been getting up 6, 7 times a night. He says, I always have pelvic pain. I sit on this thing twice, and all my pain's gone, and I'm sleeping through the night.
So explain to everybody, this sounds a little confusing here. Let's just say the applicators for the device are a large loop that's roughly 14 inches in diameter, so it'll cover a large area, and then a smaller loop that's only about 7 inches in diameter that has 2 loops together. That's why it's called a butterfly. And then there's a cord that's about 15 feet long, so I could go round, 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 and round a leg that's been destroyed in an auto accident. And that way I can go and get a different effect than if I simply took some of the other applicators. So that's why we have choices, because you're trying to get to each cell in the affected area of your body, and the cells don't have a little door that says this is where all the magnetic energy goes in. You're trying to get each part of the cell, because you're talking about the membrane. So cells are round, and when you come up to treat it, you're only going to actually get one part of the cell, the side that's closest. So that's why you may sometimes turn the applicator around. So we just want to understand, the butterfly is not that we're going out and catching butterflies or honeybees. That's the name of an applicator that's smaller but gives a more concise treatment to a smaller area, and has the ability to be opened up like a butterfly, so you can wear it like over your head like it's a helmet, which is how we treat the head at a much lower cost than the one that's now being used at Harvard and Yale and at UCLA. The NeuroStar is a $60,000 device, but it is only allowing you to treat the head. You couldn't get this man's face well, or you couldn't treat the next patient's low back without the flexibility of this amazing $20,000 23rd century device that's now in our hands in the 22nd century. Okay.
Yep. So needless to say, and thank you for clarifying what I'm talking about here as far as the applicators. I forget that people aren't familiar with this, but it just works, and you can see visually what it's done for this gentleman, who is more than happy. And he's happy that he can sleep through the night, because when he can get some rest, it just makes his whole life better. He says, Doc, that's how I live. I says,
So that's amazing. That's the amazing thing. You can treat the prostate on every man, because every man, when they get old enough, going to have some prostate trouble, some frequency of urination, and all the women get some incontinence, and you can help incontinence. You stop the frequency, but at the same time, I feel good about it, because I've had much more advanced than just prostate. I've had bladder and kidney, and we know as you get a little older, I'm still young at 76, but when you get older, you can start to lose kidney function. But we have urologists proving that this device alone is making the kidneys younger, not just the liver, not just the brain or the eyes. It can make kidneys younger.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons the guy is not having to get up 6 and 7 times at night.
Yep. He's a happy camper. Do we have those pictures of the foot ulcer?
You bet we do.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. This is so nasty. These are the kind of feet that wind up getting amputated in diabetics. And this lucky patient finds Dr. Shunkwiler in Michigan, and he starts to see, and I'll let you tell more. I'm sorry.
Well, this gentleman actually, the girl I told you about, the very first patient that the rep treated with the foot tendonitis.
She's the trainer over at the university.
Yep. This gentleman owns a junior hockey team, and she works to help him with the team as a trainer. And she saw the pictures that I had in the office of the first gentleman that you just saw with the facial radiation damage. And she said, he says, this guy's got to get in here. So he came in, and you see the picture in the upper left there is the when he presented the first day. And he'd had that ulcer in his foot for a little over a year at this point. He was wearing a hard, shoe, the wooden.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, to keep him from flexing it, getting it changed, the dressing changed daily. So I treated it, and his calf was extremely swollen, a lot of edema, and a lot of discoloration, that gray bluish color.
So obviously you had to treat and see, the interesting thing is this: if it wasn't time and money, obviously he's diabetic. Diabetics lose their eyes and their kidneys, but we're not here to prevent that. We're not here to prove that we can make him live another 10 years longer. We're here to get results for what he's worried about. But you're pointing out, as a doctor, you didn't just look at the foot and say, well, I'll treat the foot. You're saying, let's look at what the foot's connected to. It's tied to a body, and it goes to the body through a leg. And if that leg is swollen, so you're just teaching people why, as a doctor, you don't just put something in another bandage over this foot.
Right. I actually wrapped his calf with the rope applicator.
Good. The rope applicator is the 15-foot-long cord, everybody. That's the cord that you can go around and around and around the leg. And so when you're going around the leg, you get slightly different uptake by the sick, unhealthy cells. Cells have lost their membrane potential. What you're trying to do is trying to recharge all the cells in this man's leg. And so if I just put a butterfly that will go through the leg one direction, and I can turn the butterfly around and get a second direction, but when I do a wrapping, I get like a 360-degree view. A house with a 360-degree view is very valuable, and that's what the cord is. It gives us valuable ability, even if you have breast cancer that's filling your lungs up with stuff, or you've got pancreatic cancer filling your abdomen up. We can wrap the cord around and do additional things, but each one is amazing that you see people responding in as little as the few minutes that Dr. Shunkwiler is treating these people. Because if it was my neighbor and I had to look at him losing his leg, I would tend to treat him for a lot, but sometimes less is more. So tell me more how you went with this case.
Well, I would treat him a total of 12 minutes. I'd use 4 3-minute, what I call cycles, 4 3-minute sessions, and I'd vary it up. I'd put the butterfly around his foot, and I'd move it in different locations for each cycle. I'd use the rope. But after the second session, he came in, and he was so happy because the swelling, the edema in his calf was down. Absolutely. It was almost the same size as the other leg.
See, that's so powerful. When the edema is down, now we've got blood coming in and venous drainage. We're getting the bad stuff back out, which is why when we get to more advanced protocols, we'll use stuff like the special form of vitamin C that Longevity Plus carries, that is a vitamin C delivery system that can get a lot of vitamin C into the body. Not as much as you can do intravenously, but at a lot better cost, and provably maintain high blood levels, because what we're looking at in this foot in a diabetic was a threat, a big threat to this man's whole life. How long is he going to be before they chop that foot off?
Well, the picture on the lower left is after, that was week before last, and you can see that it was closed up tremendously. Now, the picture in the middle, that was last Wednesday. He had gone to his wound care doctor, who hadn't seen him since we started treatment. He was absolutely amazed. He wants me to send him a lot of information that I could.
That's so nice when a doctor is honest. When I used to get patients start to see again when they were told they would be permanently blind, or start to hear again, or cancel their bypass, or cancel a heart transplant, the doctors never wanted to learn, what did Dr. Gordon do so your child doesn't need a heart transplant? What did he do so we didn't have to cut the leg off? I have run into the different kinds. So I'm glad in Michigan you have doctors that are open. They see this happening to this man that they have been treating, and they want to know what's going on. So maybe Michigan has got better people. I'm happy to hear it.
Well, I definitely wouldn't say they're in the majority, Doc.
Okay.
There's a few. The picture in the middle, that was last Wednesday. The doc, he said it was closed up so much that he put a few stitches in there.
That's really smart.
I was really busy Saturday morning, and I went out to the front desk, and this patient was standing at the front desk beaming. He was in a regular shoe for the first time in a year and a half.
Can you imagine that?
He says, Doc, it's 100% closed up right now. When they
Wow.
came to change the dressing, the nurse told her it was.
If you knew what this disease is costing this country,
Yep.
and the disability and the people who can't show up to work and can't make a living and have health care bills and wind up with doctor after doctor, and then they finally say, well, there's no circulation to your legs, so maybe we should do the arteriogram and then we should do some surgery. Nobody, as an expert on blood flow and chelation, I would be happy to have this patient see one of our Michigan doctors and add a little chelation, because diabetes is a disease of the blood vessels. And you'll either lose toes, or you lose eyes, or you lose kidneys. And
Yep.
so you have brought him a tremendous opportunity. I hope he follows through now and starts understanding the threat that his condition has, because if he did everything I would have him do, he would never again have to have anything looking like this. But he would need 50 or 60 of the IV chelation. He'd have to be on oral chelation for the rest of his life. He'd have to be really taking the total detoxification. But we could keep this guy living to the 90-plus years of age we're all intended to live.
Well, I think he's impressed enough now. He told me that he won't miss coming in to see me at least every week after this thing heals up. And he says, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. He says, you're the man. So, so we're going to have to get it going on some nutritional therapies now that we've made such amazing progress with getting that thing healed up.
That's a great story, because that condition, I mean, do you know what percentage of our population is believed to be diabetic today? They're saying 30% of our population. And, of course, we have effective things to help people learn which diet and which supplements can help avoid some of this. But most people are not going to wake up to the reality until they're in trouble, as this man was when he walked into your office. He was in trouble. Year and a half with no shoe. I mean, he's limping around. This is a remarkable, and you're to be congratulated that you're getting pictures, because pictures are worth 1,000 words. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. My patients love to look at these. I put them on a sheet right by my little treatment chair there. And they grab them, they look at them, and then they share them. Can I have this? And I put them, so I say, yeah, take it with you. And they share it with other people, and other people then come in to get the same type of, results, hopefully. So it's been a great practice builder, just having the visualization right there for these people.
Of course.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I've noticed lately is, and I talked to you briefly about it, is the people that are experiencing weight loss.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I had a girl I was treating. She's got some developmental problems, and the mother brought her in for my chiropractic care. I do some kinesiology and that with her, and I suggested the PEMF. And I've been treating the daughter, and then the mother one time in the office, she goes, I can't lose weight. She goes, I've been going for shots. I lost, she says, 0.2 of an ounce. I don't know how the hell you measure 0.2 of an ounce, but I mean, she can wear different shoes, but
I think that's like a postage stamp.
Yeah. So she said, well, that helped me lose weight. And I said, I don't know. So, anyways, we sent her the chair.
Well, if you think about it, if we go back to all the published literature that I've covered in the previous webinars, we know beyond a doubt that you are going to restore the electron transport chain, the mitochondrial function is going to go up, ATP production. What does that all mean? It means that you've got the metabolic rate of the cell. In other words, you're turning on healthy metabolism. And people who are gaining weight all the time and all the tired have unhealthy metabolism. Of course, I would be using, it's just amazing that your practice is already so swamped with all the people that you're getting these dramatic results in, that you can wind up seeing some people and just doing the PEMF, because I, of course, like to add the zeolite to help the toxins go out, and the high-dose oral C to help tissues heal, and the oral chelation, and in the total program. But this is wonderful, and having seen what you can do when you restore healthy metabolism, I'm sure that you'll have patients that are going to say that when they never lost weight before, so tell me what happened with this case.
Yeah. Which one are you talking about?
Okay, so you wound up treating this patient that wanted to lose weight.
Oh, yes, yeah. So I treat her, and I did central nervous system, as I usually do, and then I put it across her abdomen, and that was on a Friday. She called Monday. She had to get into the office Monday. She called Monday morning because she'd lost 5 pounds. And had to get treated again.
Yes,
so,
of course.
And so I treated her Monday.
But I want everybody to understand that because people are in such a low state of metabolism due to the low level of the Earth electromagnetic field, we have experts who will state that we're back to about 0.3 Gauss in much of the planet today, and it was 30 Gauss just at the time of dinosaurs. So they're saying that roughly today you are living on 1% of the Earth's magnetic field that it once offered. And if there was no field at all, you would be dead, as you see on planet Mars. Without a magnetic field, there's no life. So it's kind of interesting to think then how many people with obesity, if they could just restore healthy metabolism by doing just what you did without bothering with any pills, no diet change, no nothing. I still think all of us need to get off the junk food, and some people need to go on the low glycemic, and some people will do better with either an Atkins or Pritikin type of diet depending on some of their genes. But I am convinced that everyone will see water leave the body, so you don't need to be on water pills because you restore the healthy function to cells. Why? Because you make the cell alkaline. How did you make your cell alkaline? Because wherever we treat you, the cell has the energy to push out sodium, take in potassium. That makes the cell alkaline, and when it's alkaline, every cell can wring much more oxygen out of the passing red blood cells, sometimes 10 times more oxygen. So that's why the metabolic rate go up. It's like if you ever have seen a flame underneath, say, a water heater. If it's a yellow flame, it's not doing anything. If you keep on tuning it and get it just right, you can, like the pilot light, you get it to hot blue. That's what we have to do with our mankind. Mankind on our planet are all a yellow flame, very low energy, having to eat a lot of food and not getting much energy out of it, and not feeling good, and getting more obese and retaining more fluid and not getting the oxygen in the cells. So we do know what you're doing, but I'm so glad we need to open a few clinics and just treat people and do nothing but bring up what the Earth took away. We need to restore the Earth's magnetic field to optimal by having people come in, and just like the Chevy Volt car, instead of plugging your car into your garage, we're going to have to bring you into Dr. Shunkwiler's office and absolutely recharge your life.
Well, you know, the mind kind of boggles at the potential of PEMF, and I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about where this is going, but it's, in my mind, it's just opening up a tremendous amount of possibilities of where this could go. And you know, at this point, I have patients that say to me, why isn't this in every hospital? Why isn't this in every doctor's office? Why isn't this in every emergency room?
Well, because the standard reflex in Western medicine, if it wasn't invented here, it's no good. It's called the not invented here syndrome. And so the first response is always rejection. If it was any good, they would have heard about it when they went to medical school, even if they've been out for 30 years. So there's a little resistance to change, because here we're talking about something that some of the devices that are available, that are PEMF devices, are already specifically approved, like little ones that you put right over a wrist that never healed, and they may only be $5,000, and your insurance probably has to pay for it. But the problem is insurance doesn't want to pay for it until they know they have a problem. So you may have to go 4 or 5 months without healing and have a wrist that's in trouble, and you may never play the piano again. And then they say, oh, well, maybe we'll let you lease one of these $4,000 or $5,000 machines, because that's just big enough just to put on the wrist. It isn't anything like the device that we are speaking about here, because I don't think of any device that really fits the category of the PMT 100. It's actually filling a whole new slot. But if anybody goes and checks out PEMF, there's a lot of things out there, and some of them are very reasonably priced, but they're not going to have the kicker. You wouldn't be doing these dramatic things Dr. Shunkwiler is able to do if you're playing with just a little toy. But it's important, a little toy might be all you need so that you don't wind up losing the use of a wrist or an ankle that didn't heal from the fracture.
It's amazing technology, and I think what you're touching on is the fact that we have to be part, because who else is going to do it, of developing a whole new paradigm of what constitutes health care.
Exactly, that new paradigm, having had the experience that I've had with my horse this last 6 days, is really integrative medicine, because frankly, without the holistic vet, my horse would be dead, because he understood where all the points were, the acupoints, and the power of the laser, and the power of homeopathy, and the power of oxygen and ozone and pulsed electro. But at the same time, we were stuck, because the horse, by the time we knew she was in trouble, she was in deep trouble, and she had to be cut open, and she had to decompress that massively distended intestine. And when you do that, the intestine goes into a state of shock, and you get endotoxins released. So she had to have the best of Western and what we call alternative care combined, because without fluids going into her, she would have been dead without what the normal Western treatment is. But that didn't get the bowel coming back very fast, and that didn't get us over the infections that we were able to handle with all these additional things. And her daily treatment twice a day with PEMF, and I have to treat with her, because this is a horse that jumps these 6- and 7-foot jumps. She has to have feet that don't hurt. And when you have this life-threatening illness that almost caused her to have to be put to sleep a week ago, with that life-threatening thing, they get an infection called laminitis, which cripples horses. So thank heavens we have PEMF, but we only have so much time to treat, because there's other people that need access to the horse to thieves. So we added a laser to the time, because if you think about it, a laser treatment, when you have a PEMF field, the laser will be almost without friction. So a laser, instead of going just a short distance through the skin, will go all the way, because in what we call quantum mechanics and particle physics, what we are talking about here, in a sense, is replacing electrons, which is what the body needs to solve problems when it's in a problem state. And you get electrons when you use high-dose vitamin C, but you can get electrons also from the microcurrent that we attach to the acupoints that we were treating with acupuncture needles. So anyhow, I just want everybody to know that there is this dichotomy, whereas in Germany, you have the right, with your health insurance, no question, to go to centers of biological therapy, and they do all of the things I just rattled off, are all available in Germany daily without having to fight the system. Now in America, if your loved one is about ready to die and you say, would you please give my husband or my father intravenous vitamin C, they will not do it. You have to get the book Curing the Incurable. You have to contact Longevity Plus. You have to get the support so you know what you're talking about, or they will ignore your request, and you may wind up needing an attorney that sits there and says you cannot withhold reasonable therapies. But it's that tough, even though PEMF is now in places like UCLA and Stanford and Yale. That doesn't mean that your local hospital they haven't heard about it, they're going to resist it. And if you say, well, I really don't want to be crippled and I don't want to wait to find out if my fracture doesn't heal, I want PEMF. I did that with my body when I had a fracture ankle and I knew about magnet therapy, and my insurance company said, no way, we're not going to buy you that thing. So I spent $7,000 or $8,000 then just to get the device, so I couldn't afford to be a cripple. I couldn't wait to see if that ankle, which was terribly shattered, was going to be a non-union, and then they might pay for the machine, and that would have wasted 6 months of my life. And so I'm just pointing out that there's so many applications for PEMF, and I think we want to talk a little bit about an interesting patient that came in with a limp, the Dr. Shunkwiler.
Yep, she had a limp. She had a limp because she had brain cancer. And the cancer had affected that part of her brain, which controlled the motor function of that foot. And she was a mother. Well, I had treated her a couple of times years ago, but the mother of one of my patients, and she had seen my the machine and seen the pictures, and she goes, "Well, that helped my mom." And I said, "I think it'll help everybody. If she's got cells in her body, it will help her."
That's the bottom line. What we're doing is no different than if you've been in the desert and you haven't had water. We're replacing what your body needs, and the earth has taken, and this is as basic as water. The magnetic field of the earth, without it, we would be a dead planet. When we put you in an ohm cage where we take away all of the earth's magnetic field, within a couple of hours, you can't raise your arm up off the floor. So we know what we are doing. We are facing earth changes, which are much more complex than climate changes, and it ties to where does the magnetism come from, the molten iron core in the center of the earth. It's very hot, and it is going through rotation, and it generates electric currents, which generate magnetic currents. But that's enough for the earth change story at the moment.
So
tell me
I started treating her. I treat her with many different ways. I use the different applicators. I'd have her sit on the treat therapy mat. I'd put the butterfly on her head. I'd have her hold the large loop around her head, treat her central nervous system, so forth and so on. And within several weeks, now I would have liked to seen her more often than I did. She could only come in about once a week. But within several weeks, she said she was sitting in the chair and she picked her foot up and stomped it on the floor. And she goes, "Look at that." I said, "Well, that's pretty cool." She says, "I couldn't do that before." And she's moved her foot around. She couldn't move her foot before. Now she could lift up her toes and kind of twirl her foot. And she was very excited. Well, last week she got the results from the latest scan that they did. And the report was, the doctors told her that all the tumors they were following are now just a shadow of what they were. Significant reduction in the tumor mass. So,
and did we ever find out, was it a glioblastoma? Is that what they thought?
I haven't seen her since we last talked, so I wasn't able to.
But that's interesting because you mentioned the therapy mat. Now the therapy mat is we've talked about the so-called butterfly, which is the small loop and the big loop and the cord. Now the mat has got two of the cords rolled up inside of a mat that is roughly about 40 inches wide by about 55, 60 inches in the other dimension, and you have something that you can lay down on without having to think, do I want to just treat it with a loop around the neck, or do I want to just have a loop behind the kidneys, or do I just...
Dr. Gordon, excuse me, but if you go back to that picture, if you can do that, of my office,
yes,
my treatment area.
Oh, good. Thank you. We'll do that.
You can visualize that because there's the mat right on the
chair.
I have people sit on it.
Oh,
and there's the large loop on the left side hanging on the wall there.
That's perfect.
Yep.
This is the large loop right there.
And the rope is underneath it.
Okay, that's the cord right there.
You
This is the
can't
cord.
see the butterfly, but
This is the cord that we can wrap around somebody's entire abdomen if they're in trouble inside with pancreas disease or liver. So there's a lot of flexibility in this picture. And the pad allows you to take somebody that's an invalid and in sort of a rest home and just slide this under the patient and treat them every single day. As Dr. Shunkwiler is saying, obviously with somebody with the serious pathology this young lady had, he would have liked to have been able to treat her more often. And certainly when he started the treatment, she's just been amazing to have the report that the brain tumors became a shadow of what they were.
Yep.
And she's so happy.
She's real happy too.
Wow. Well, the thing is, because in the other slides that we have, which I'm just going to show a few of them very briefly, we have a lot of slides explaining why all this works, the mitochondrial story, and we'll do this again at another time because it's going to be too long for our followers today, but we know we increase energy storage, which is ATP, so we know the science of what we're doing. We know we turn on nitric oxide with this treatment. We know we can lower inflammation. If we lower inflammation, we're going to lower pain in anybody. I don't care if it's back, headache, arm, shoulder, it doesn't make any difference. It is just obvious that it needs to have a PEMF trial. A trial would mean you treat it a couple of times, and if you like the effect, then you may want to figure out how you're going to get regular access to the device, because I have to admit, I mean, the first treatment I had was a total of 9 minutes, and I immediately knew something had happened, but I had no idea of how far that could go. And now that I'm having to treat my really sick horse for half an hour twice a day, you can imagine how much treatment I'm getting. So all of a sudden I'm finding that things are getting younger and more things don't have stiffness and pain. So this pulsed electromagnetic field can be done in help people sleep. It can be used for anything. And it's astonishing when you begin to realize that it's going to block pain. We know what it does. This is the transmembrane potential where it's kicking out the sodium and letting the potassium in, which makes the cell alkaline. This is the true, alkaline water, you can have your proponents, but nothing will compete with the alkalinity that you restore to the cell that is in the field when you're treating it with this device. And we can explain that more, but it's really nice to know that it's the problem of the millivolt charge that is so important, because cancer always has an unhealthy millivolt charge, and if you bring that back up, that's one of the reasons the device was first developed in Greece, was for the treatment of cancer. But we now can look at that and say, well, obviously it would help cancer because it's like the poor man's hyperbaric oxygen. Why would I say that? Because when you make the cell alkaline, the red blood cell can release as much as 10 times more oxygen to the cell. So you're getting rid of inflammation, you're restoring blood flow, you're getting rid of the swelling, the pain, and the bruising. So it's kind of exciting to know that the damaged cells, any injury, is energy deficient. So energy deficient means whoever you know that's gotten injured yesterday, if they could go somewhere and have this treatment, they're going to recover in a fraction of the time, even if it's only 9 minutes. And remember, it's going to carry out the toxins because it stores up, this opens up the lymphatic. So the toxins can leave. And remember, no matter what part of your body you're talking about, there are toxins, dioxin and PCBs and polybrominated diphenyl ethers in aluminum and cadmium and mercury and lead. I mean, you can't avoid it. But we can restore membrane flexibility, and when you take it with the vitamin C, and there's only one vitamin C in the world called Bioenergy C that actually gets high enough levels in the bloodstream because it's so well tolerated by the person's stomach that it can almost compete with the dramatic things that intravenous vitamin C does. And it is the treatment of choice for all patients who are having to be treated on cancer. They need to be on the vitamin C. delivery system called bioenergy C. Now it stimulates cell-cell communication, and it's going to start growth and repair, and it's going to help the non-union fractures. And so it's kind of nice to know these fractures like I had, absolutely, even if they've been a long time, 19 fractures treated with surgery and PEMF United within 9 months of the treatment, 14 were treated with PEMF alone, 12, 86% united within 10 months, 2 failed to unite. That sounds terrible, but what you don't understand, these were selected cases that were these were cases that were hopeless. And if 86% came back, but you need to know, you don't make bone overnight. So it's confusing to people when they hear us talk about some of these dramatic cases we are, and there are dramatic cases, but that's not possible. With some conditions, it's going to be as I'm doing now. I'm going into my 6th month, soon 7th month on the device, and I'm seeing changes in my body now that we're not there at the end of the 3rd or the 4th month. So the fractures are all pretty clear. Horses are going to get better, get rid of inflammation, cancer, autoimmune disease, and the FDA approved a device recently you put over the head that just treats the head with the electricity. Well, the electricity is good, but the PEMF wearing just using what we call the butterfly over the head will give you the electricity in a more sophisticated form than I've ever seen anywhere, but it gives it with the magnetic field, so you're doing the nitric oxide, you're doing all these other things, you're restoring transmembrane potential, you're getting rid of the sodium inside. It's very important what we're doing. And you across the thing, it's need to know that Yale University talked about the fact that these fields are safe and effective. It's a new treatment, and it slows down tumor growth in vivo as well as in vitro, as shown in human cancer patients. So that doesn't mean that one treatment is going to make everybody jump out of the chair and say, oh, my cancer is gone. But it makes more sense, and it will be more predictably beneficial than the 99% of the chemo. 99% of the chemo being given is only going to extend somebody's life 2 or 3 weeks, and you go through a form of hell to go on chemo, and it may make life not worth living when we don't bother with the chemo and realize how its limitations are and look and focus on getting the body well, like Dr. Albert Sven-Gorgi. I knew Dr. Sven-Gorgi personally, a Nobel Prize winner, the man that first identified the molecule of vitamin C, is telling you that cells are not going to be healthy until you restore the millivolt transmembrane potential, which is what we are talking today, and it's why it's such a basic way of treating cancer. And everybody needs to know, this is very exciting to know, that there is proof that the basal cell carcinoma, the skin cancers, respond clearly differently than normal cell. In other words, people always said, well, how would the body know that the cancer cell needs this and the healthy cell needs that? It's amazing that it works that way. And this is the lady that got out of the wheelchair after 9 years with Guillain-Barré. And there's multiple sclerosis, there's depression, there's tremendous exciting things. This is the machine that's being used at Yale and Harvard and UCLA. That's $60,000. This machine is $60,000, but it doesn't let you treat the ankle or the kidney or the skin or the. You're only allowed to treat the head with it. So it's only approved for that use, but it's got all this good research, and it will absolutely lift depression and turn on stem cells, and across the board. That's what's so exciting. That's what's got me at age 76 thinking I might be even younger when I'm 86. Most people haven't really seriously thought, and I'm not having to buy stem cells in China or India. I'm making my own by using the device. This is the young man that never completed a sentence at age 18, and when he got treated with this, a wonderful story, this young man within 6 weeks was able to actually give a talk at school, and they had, the day before he got treated with this device, he was told, the family was told that he needed to go and be put in an institution. He was hopeless. He had cerebral palsy and autism. So after one treatment, there was eye contact. He was changed, and then he said later, he said, you don't know what it's like to have the brain fog removed. It's like awakening from a long sleep. So now what can you add to if you have a PEMF and you still have got a lot of health problems, there'll be light, there'll be laser, there'll be microelectric, there'll be homeopathy, there'll be neural therapy. But you need to know that even if it's Alzheimer's disease, they're showing that the treatment is showing dramatic improvement in one part of the brain, the vision, and the visuoconstructive performance with other cognitive functions, short-term memory. So I think there's hope for all of us, and part of the hope is because I have everybody on zeolite in my oral chelation, my high-dose oral vitamin C to pull the toxins out. And we can provably show that when you increase ATP, which all the research by Dr. Pollack and others shows that you raise ATP when you use the magnet, then you get the toxins out before magnet, after magnet. There's a huge increase in the lead and the mercury and the other toxins going out. But you still need to know about far infrared sauna, negative ions, how to change the diet, what herbs would be good. Massage is still good. I'm not against any of it. We just need to know that Kobayashi, my MD, PhD, molecular biologist, oncologist, pathologist friend in Tokyo, that has proven with 10,000 patients that you can keep anybody from dying of cancer with these things. So today's message is you need to recharge your life, reduce the pain, reduce the inflammation, increase the range of motion, increase the tensile strength so your ligaments don't tear like President Clinton walking down the steps of the White House. His knee gives out. Well, you can't live at McDonald's and expect to have strength in your ligaments. You need the high doses of the vitamin C, and because they've taken away our magnetic field, you could consider putting a pad on a mattress. And each pad roughly is 100 pounds. Each pad roughly weighs it'll cost about $900. So if you have a king-size bed, it might cost you $3,600. Is it worth it? Well, they're never going to wear out, and that's taking you back to the level of magnetic energy that we had at the time of dinosaurs. This is Dr. Gary Gordon, and I am so indebted to Dr. Shunkwiler, and I'm so glad that he joined FACT, and all health professionals are invited to join FACT free of charge. It was Dr. Shunkwiler joining FACT in his desperate search to try to save his son's life with that advanced lymphoma he found that caused Dr. Shunkwiler to say, gee, there's that Dr. Gordon, and he keeps talking about something called PEMF, and he got involved in researching it. The websites we have include Zeolite Answer. If you're not on Zeolite at Longevity Plus, you are not getting toxins out as efficiently as you can. My Gordon Research Institute has got many, many, many features. If you spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours there, I tell you all about with my webinar how to improve your diet, how to deal with infections, how much sober to use, how to find a doctor when you need other help. And Dr. Shunkwiler, thank you. This has been one tremendous, enjoyable webinar. I'm sure that we're going to have to do it more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon and Dr. Shunkwiler. We encourage you to browse Dr. Gordon's website, which is www.gordonresearch.com, and Dr. Kim Shunkwiler's website, which is www.shunkwilerchiropractic.com. The products that Dr. Gordon has formulated are available through Longevity Plus. Please visit our website at www.longevityplus.com or call 800-580-7587 to place your order. We value all of you, and thank you for joining us today.